Hey everyone. Alright, so we're doing another video response for Hirzamitz? I'm almost certain I butchered that name. He asks, what advice will you give or one story in your career that you would share to help new developers who are not yet confident about their programming abilities? So, I didn't think about this one, but I think I have a story. So I spent, it's not an exciting story, I'm going to get right to the point with it, but I spent about a year and a half learning what I thought I needed to learn to become a web developer, and in truth, I created a lot of gaps of knowledge where if I knew kind of a more solidified path, I would have filled those gaps. And so that's a very common thing when you're making that transition, especially if you don't have any mentors. And I had no one. I just looked things up on the internet and I did my best. But the big mistake that I had, and trust me, I felt, I almost gave up on that ambition many times. And what helped solidify my confidence that I actually could be a web developer was when I started actually applying for jobs. And I think, yeah, that's probably when I started building confidence. One of the first interviews I had was for a PHP position in Chicago, and getting a better feel for the job and the type of developers that I'd be working with. I didn't get the job. They didn't hire me, which is definitely a blessing in disguise. But I didn't really... I think it was more of a WordPress position. It was pretty heavy into WordPress customization. I was learning PHP because it's one of the more popular back-end languages, and it's what I thought I wanted to do. But I didn't really build a lot of applications in it. I didn't talk to developers that worked with PHP daily. And so I didn't really get a good feel for the type of position that I basically was aiming for. And that first interview opened my eyes to basically being more open to the front end. And then I started pursuing front end positions a little bit more. And as I went to more interviews, I loved the people that I met. It was still very discouraging because I got rejected a lot, but I learned tons about what was expected of me, and I started solidifying where my skill level really should be to get that first position. And I would go home after the interviews, and I'd study more, I'd apply to other jobs, and the more interviews I went to, the more confidence I gained that I actually had the technical skills to perform the job well enough for them to be willing to ramp me up. And I realized it wasn't the technical skills that I was lacking as much anymore. It was my interview skills. It was just kind of like experience, and this is hard to get without experience, but experience in just working on teams with other developers, working on complex projects, and just, being able to work with other developers without stepping on each other's toes. And I kind of figured out ways how to solve that. But really the confidence came when I started going to interviews and they basically told me what I needed to have and what I didn't have. And to get a lot out of the interviews, you need to be a good listener. You need to be able to read your interviewer and kind of see where they're pulling away from the interview, where they're not, as excited about the conversation they're having with you, and then when they get more excited. For example, when I would talk about, I'm not going to go into details, but I had a really fun project that used PHP, but it was a lot of front end. And I got really excited about it, and I had this interviewer that got really excited about it, so I knew there was something to that project. And so I started emphasizing that more in my cover letter, in the interview. And I I try to at least bring that conversation up at least once in the interviews. So really, the interviews gave me my confidence. You don't really know how much you need to know to get that first position until you get your first position. And the second best thing to doing that is going to interviews, getting even closer to getting that first position. Let the interviews, I guess you probably should take some interviews with a grain of salt, but mostly be open to letting those interviews tell you what you're doing really well with your journey and what you need to start focusing more on. So yeah, that's it. Biggest piece of advice is go to interviews early when you get that first project up. Start applying for positions, put it on your resume as experience, because it is, you built a project, and start jumping into those interviews. You will most likely get rejected a lot. That's normal. Keep applying, keep researching companies, keep sending out kind of coffee date offers on LinkedIn, just to get to know developers on the team a little bit more. I mean, I go over some of this stuff in other videos, but biggest piece of advice, apply to jobs early, even if you feel like you're not ready. That's it.
I've been cold to you, but you want nothing to do with me, so hopefully we'll coexist in time.